Folks, good evening and welcome. My name is Melissa Santucci-Rossi. I'm the chair of the Watertown Zoning Board of Appeals. This is our April 24th meeting. We have a pretty small agenda tonight. We have approval of some administrative minutes, and then we have one case this evening, which is 195 Mount Auburn Street. What I'm going to do is introduce the folks that are here, swear people in, and then we can get into the matter that's on the agenda this evening. So down to my far right, we have Gideon Schreiber, one of our senior planners, Mike Mena, will be in that seat in a few minutes, our zoning enforcement officer, Louise Savetti, clerk to the board. And then tonight we have our full board here, all full members, and all will be voting on the petition this evening. To my far right, Member Donato, to my left, to my immediate right, Member Ferris and clerk, to my left, Member Heap, and to his left, Member Gannon. So what I'd like to do now is if anyone is going to speak, if they could stand up, raise their right hand, and repeat after me. I swear the testimony I give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The testimony I give this evening is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Awesome. Great. Okay, has everybody had a chance to look at the meeting minutes from March?
Yes.
Yeah. Is there a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 27th, 2019.
There's been a motion. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, so our case, like I had previously announced, 195 Mount Auburn Street. Member Ferris will read the legal notice, and then you can get started, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. 195 Mount Auburn Street, Clark, and I apologize, Clark Lefteriadis, special permit finding to allow the conversion of commercial space on the lower floor and first floor to a residential unit with the existing residential unit on the second and third floor, and the previously permitted commercial space on the first floor to remain for a total of 2 residential units. This is located in the SC Single Family Conversion Zoning District.
Thank you. Sir.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Michael Brodigan, and I represent the petitioners, Clark Lefteriadis and Zana Gold. As was just read, this is in reference to the property at 195 Mount Auburn Street. The property is in the SC zoning district and consists of a 2.5 to 3-story Queen Anne colonial revival Victorian house that was built circa 1893. The building is currently a mixed-use building with 3 commercial spaces and 1 residential space. The residential space is on the second and third floor of the units, and the commercial spaces are on the ground and basement floors of the structure. The site has a paved driveway and a detached garage. The project that's before you, the petition that's before you this evening, includes, among other things, preserving one of the commercial spaces and replacing 2 of the commercial spaces with a residential unit. So the project, if approved, would consist of 1 commercial space and 2 residential spaces. The addition of the residential space would be on the ground and basement floors, and the existing commercial space would be retained on the second and third floors, and 1 of the commercial spaces would be retained on the ground floor as well. I'm sure the board is aware of the history of this property, but to give it to you in a very clean nutshell, the property was used as a single-family dwelling until about 1957. At that time, it was converted, a portion of it was converted to the use as a funeral home. In 1996, Mr. Younger, who's here this evening, sought and obtained a special permit finding, converting the funeral home into 2 commercial uses while retaining the residential use on the second and third floors. That special permit finding was further amended in 1998 to allow for the present 3 commercial uses and the 1 residential use. In 2016, my client appeared before this board and asked for an amendment or a special permit finding to permit 2 of the commercial spaces to be converted to the use of a Pilates studio for the operation of his business. That petition was allowed by this board and then appealed by an abutter. That appeal is still pending by way of full disclosure in the land court as we speak here this evening. The present The present petition before you tonight is seeking to have a special permit issued that would permit the second residential unit to take place of the two existing commercial units at the property. As I said, those would be on, the residential unit would be on the ground and the basement floors. Parking at the site would consist of 4 stacked spaces in the existing garage. The existing garage would remain, and 2 tandem spaces in the driveway, as well as 1 shadow space as shown on the plans that have been submitted to the board. We submit to the board that pursuant to Section 905 of the zoning ordinance, a special permit criteria has been met in that the specific site is an appropriate location for the use and structure of the condition. This, as everybody knows, is in a residential neighborhood. My client has heard from the neighbors, and they have asked, many have asked, that forego his Pilates studio in that particular area. He's listened to that, and we stand before you tonight with a proposal to accomplish just that. The use as developed won't adversely affect the neighborhood. In fact, we think it would only enhance the neighborhood. It would provide additional housing to the area. It would also be beneficial in the sense that we believe that this particular petition before you would reduce the traffic that is associated with the site currently, and even associated with the site that was approved by the board relative to the Pilates studio. We don't believe that there'll be any nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. Again, in fact, we think that the conversion of 1 of the, or 2 of the commercial spaces into a residential space will actually reduce the amount of traffic within the driveway, this just by the very nature of it being residential as opposed to commercial use. The number of vehicle trips would probably certainly be less, and we would have less activity in the driveway. And also that adequate and appropriate facilities will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use. There's very little exterior work that's being done. There's some windows that are being replaced as detailed in the plans. But the existing, or most of the work will be done on the interior of the premises. And most of, if not all of the work, will be done facing either Mount Auburn Street or the side on Franklin Street. Again, the interior of the premises will be remodeled so that the residential unit would be on the ground floor and the basement floor as it relates to the Mount Auburn side of the premises. Also, you'll see that there was some plans just recently submitted relative to the parking, the 2 tandem spaces in the driveway. We appeared before the planning board, and one of the recommendations was that we put a buffer zone between the parking spaces and Franklin Street. You'll see that the buffer space is there, and that we have suggested that pipe bollards be put in front of there so that cars aren't pulling directly out onto Franklin Street, but rather they're entering into that lane of travel that's the driveway, so as to avoid any type of conflict with the vehicle traffic or pedestrian traffic on Franklin Street itself. That's essentially a synopsis of the project. With me this evening is Andy Rojas, the architect for the project. He can answer any questions you have from a technical nature as it relates to the construction or the proposed alterations of the premises.
Sir, could you just have him do a quick overview of the documents submitted, please?
Sure.
And I'm assuming it's egress and windows and ventilation and code things?
Yes.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, sir?
Sure.
Thank you. That might just prevent more questions, once you kind of just...
Hi, I'm Andy Rojas from the architectural firm Rojas Design. Gideon, can I ask you to go to the proposed plan? That's the basement plan. If you look at A1.1, which is the basement plan, you'll see that there are 2 bedrooms, a study or office, and a bathroom. A new stair has been put in. We've added windows. I don't know if you received, we had provided in the past a code analysis that spoke about the windows.
Yep.
We spoke with the building department and went over the requirements for light, air, and egress. And the windows are such, the number of windows and their locations are such to allow that and to meet that code. We think that it's a very nice two-bedroom unit. If you could go to the first floor. Yep, the first floor is really, you can see from that little side entrance, that's really the main entrance to the unit. And it comes into the living dining room, and there's a large kitchen, eat-in kitchen, and then a study and a bathroom, and the new stair circulating down into the basement. Again, many of the windows are in existing locations. They've been made slightly bigger to meet the light, air, and egress requirements. But we have added a few. The ones in the front are really replaced in kind. They're going to be the same size as what's there now, because they don't need to be enlarged in order to meet those requirements. And we felt that the front facade really, we're going to historical tomorrow, so we're trying to be sensitive to that as well. It's a large two-bedroom unit. It's about 2,000 some odd feet. We think it'll be open, attractive, and a lot of light now. And we think it'll be a good asset on Mount Auburn Street.
And can you just go over the egress very quickly to that unit? I see the one existing door on the first level, on the opposite of the Franklin Street side, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
And then is the other one through the common entry in the back?
Could we go to the plan again? To A 1.1? Yeah, yes, you can see next to the bathroom,
Yep,
there is a door that allows to the common entry, and that other door goes into the driveway area. So there's that as well. And of course, the stair up. And if you look, if you stay right there a second, go back, get in, I'm sorry, to where we were. There, you see that the windows on the front and on the side opposite Franklin Street now have window wells. Those are to meet the larger windows, to allow for the larger windows for light and air and egress, but also for egress. All of those are required in order to allow suitable egress in that basement. And the same thing, if you go to A 1.2, the windows in the living room, in the dining room and in the study, or, the room in the back, also meet those requirements for egress.
Okay.
So we've, informally met with the building department, talked to them about it, and feel that we can meet the requirements of the code.
okay. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
What I'm going to do before I turn it over to the board, there are some members of the public here. Does anyone have any comments or questions or would like to speak? Come on up, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Rena Baskin, 15 Franklin.
Hi.
Hi. I think this is a vast improvement over other proposals, and I'm very pleased that it's going to be residential. And it looks like it'll be very nice. I do have a couple of concerns. Some have already been addressed. One was the direct backing up of the cars onto Franklin, direct access, and I think they said something about bollards or some way of preventing them from driving directly out the driveway onto Franklin. That's great if they're taking care of that.
Excuse me for 1 second, ma'am. Gideon, can you put up the plan that shows what Ms. Baskin is speaking of so people can just, okay, thank you. So this drawing shows in front of the, it's like a little, it
Right.
looks crosshatch.
Where those two cars are parked along the side of the driveway closest to number 9 Franklin, there's something behind it that prevents them from backing right out or going right
Correct.
out. Okay, that's awesome.
Grass and
That's-
bollards.
I'm very happy about that. I have a couple of questions. So each unit would have 2 parking spaces of the residential units, is that right?
Correct.
And how many is the business need to have?
The business has 2.
Okay, so as far as that shadow parking thing goes, that's really parking on a front lawn. That is number 7 Franklin Street, that entrance there is actually an entrance to the building, official entrance, has a mailbox, the whole thing. I believe there's an ordinance that says you can't park on lawns, you can't build parking in front of a house. And I would like to see no shadow parking there, in part because I don't think it's safe, and for another, it's not, it won't look well, and there's a beautiful tree right there, and I hate to lose that. So I would like to say, if you are going to approve this, that you not allow the shadow parking. That would be my request. And also, my other concern is, years ago, there was some unpermitted paving of the sidewalk. It was widened, and it's very, very wide there now, and cars, because there's no curbs, are parking right up on the sidewalk. They do it just about daily. There's somebody parked on that sidewalk. And it's before the driveway to the corner, and there are no signs that say no parking here to corner, and people come around the corner, so people want to avoid people coming around the corner. They don't want to be hit, so they park on the sidewalk.
Like, kind of like up, two wheels up?
Oh, yeah, at least, sometimes more. But I would also request that in approving this, that you ask the town or whoever is responsible to fix that sidewalk so that it's the normal width sidewalk, take out the extra stuff and put in a planting strip there. Because the cars are so near the corner there, it's very dangerous. We have a lot of toddlers and little children on our street now, and the sidewalk is just not safe if cars can drive right up onto it, number one, it's too wide, and number two, there should be some protection between the road and the sidewalk in the form of a planting strip. Even, I know that they don't put curbs in unless they redo the whole street, but if you're going to have 6 cars going in and out of that driveway, and then other people parking there who are going to the businesses, it would be really important for public safety that that occur. So I would like you to take that into consideration as well, please.
Okay.
And I think that's what I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Mr. Younger, please.
Clyde Younger, 188 Acton Street in Watertown, Mass. And I'm former owner of 195 Ma Street. I had brought to the board's attention a email that was received by me in 2015 from Uri Chemerwit, Mr. Block's wife. As you are aware, I used to own 9 Franklin Street as well, and I sold 9 Franklin Street to that family. So I want to point out that in the email that you received, I don't know if you had the opportunity to review it or not at this point, but the parties were going to conduct the same type of residential development consistent with what Zana and Clark are doing this evening. So they would have the same constraints that they're discussing today. So I'm glad that really that one of the abutters is talking about that it is much improved over the previous recommendations as far as use of the building, because I think that's the difference, is use. And it has been shown that this can work, and that I would ask that the board act favorably on the request of the petitioner this evening. This has gone on for a number of years. I know that no one really wants to go through this for the next 20, 30 years. And so I think that we need to act on it and act decisively as far as ending this once and for all. So I would ask that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Come on up, sir.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Block. I live next door at 9 Franklin Street. So like my neighbor Rena, I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. I'm pleased that there's more residential and less commercial use. And as I said in the planning board meeting, well, it's the best plan I've seen so far. And I had some reservations then. Some of them have been addressed. So like Rena also said, I appreciate that the bollards or the buffer has now been put in there, which was a suggestion that was made to the planning board. It avoids a hazard, which has been existing there for quite some time. And it's important for a special permit that it does not increase hazards to vehicles and pedestrians. On the other hand, another suggestion that was made was to remove the shadow parking. I don't believe it's necessary. I also believe that it creates another kind of a hazard. The tree would go, but most importantly right now, it's unsightly and just horrible, and it's, in my opinion, obviously, you know this, it's on a front lawn. Well, the issue here with the shadow parking is that I don't want to debate this, but once it's put in there, it becomes a matter of right for the petitioner if he claims that he needs it to handle the parking. Instead of coming back to the board later and saying, I need more parking, I can't fit the vehicles on site, would you do an amendment or a new special permit, which I think is a more appropriate route to take. So those are the two issues that I raised before, and I raised another issue in addition to that, which also Rena raised, which was regarding restoring the planting strip. In prior permits, including the one that was approved or granted in 2016, there was a condition which basically allowed for that to be restored. According to my research with the DPW, they would not do it until the homeowner or the property owner requests it. And so we've been stuck with that as in the neighborhood now for years. It's paved completely from the sidewalk. The sidewalk continuously stretches to the pavement, and it's just, for lack of a better phrase, I mean, there's a car there when I left now. It's just too attractive for drivers, and they just pull up there and park and create a hazard that should be addressed. So I hope that you can find a way of putting that into conditions. Regarding a couple things, actually, where we have that slide up there, I think it's important to note something. So that has the bollards, and that has the location of the garage and the cars in it. There's slight inconsistencies between the parking plan and this one, and I think they need to be cleared up. This is a special permit. The plans become control documents. I really want to avoid us being in the situation that we've been in the prior permits, having erroneous plans. Plus, it would be legal grounds actually send this back and do it again, and I don't want to have to go do this again. So the parking plan, if you want to, the stamped parking plan, which is dated, I believe, April 5th, if you want to put that one up as a different example, just so we can point out what to clear up. I pointed this out at the planning board meeting, and one of the plans were corrected, but not the other one. So that was an improvement. I think we're getting very close.
Sorry, it's all zoomed in.
Okay, so there was a request that I think it was in the planning board for the parking plan to be submitted.
There's been some updated plans.
What?
There were some updated plans that have been submitted, so you might not have seen those, just for
What's your
reference.
concern, sir? We have the plans here.
The plans that are online, whether or not they're updated or there are new ones, it's not clear to me, but they are different and they are inconsistent. And we should have one set which creates the control documents.
So
Which set is the accurate plan?
What is, so that's your question, which?
Yeah, I had, I
okay.
mean, I'm sorry you were not at the planning board meeting. I had that same question. I was met with a lot of hostility from the people in the audience, and then they corrected the plans, I believe, Gideon, right?
Sorry, what specifically was the discrepancy?
Yeah,
So we
that's
can
what
look
it-
at the plans and
So
let you
there
know
are
whether it's
multiple
been corrected?
discrepancies. So we'll
Okay.
start, if you can put up the parking plan.
It's
It's
right
up
now.
there, sir.
Thank
This
you.
is the
one that's
stamped plan.
The stamped plan. Okay, so on the parking plan does not, look at the locations for spots 1, 2, 3, and 4 in reference to the outlines of the buildings. It's a very small error, and you should fix it. This plan was created April 5th.
I'm sorry, what's the difference?
Yeah, what?
So-
Is it the
I can explain this to a certain degree. There's a wall in the garage where the door was. And so Jonathan Block is pointing out that the outlines of the parking spots on the plot plan, those number 2 and number 4 would actually be up against the side walls of the front face of the garage, while the landscape plan shows them defined within the space. So we typically don't, we know that scale-wise, those spaces fit there, but this plot plan is showing them just laid on top of the garage layout.
So the plot plan is maybe showing the spaces wider than they would be able to exist because of the existing door opening.
And they're proposing to expand the doorway opening by, and if Andy wants to speak to that,
So is this the situation where, like, the front of the garage has an outline of the wall and the door's in the middle, and they're gonna take where the door was and that wall and open it up?
right, but not all the way to the outside wall. It'll still have a short wall, so this picture shows,
Gideon, if you
Because
don't
I don't
mind, can
see
you-
the discrepancy.
Do you have, in the PowerPoint there, the sketch of the garage that I sent?
no, because that was for historic.
Oh.
Space,
Do they have it?
that space.
No, because it was for historic.
Oh, okay. What's happening is the existing garage door opening is 15 feet wide. In order to accommodate 2 parking spaces, we're making it 18 feet wide. The parking spaces are 8'6" by 18. They fit perfectly fine, and it's a concrete block garage. It's a simple cut on one side. It's not all the way to the body of the house and the building. If you look at the revised, I think it's A04, can you go to that? Or A1.4? No, I think it's A4.
A04.
A04? Is that the proposed elevation on Franklin Street?
Yep.
Yeah. If you look at the proposed elevation on Franklin Street, you'll see that we've called out that the garage opening has been widened to 18 feet. It accommodates those cars. Those spots are 8'6", so 18 feet leaves enough, and a car is not 8'6". If you look at the landscape plan, you'll see inside the parking space what an actual size car looks like. So it's going to be significantly less impactful inside that garage. It's going to work fine. So all we're doing is widening the garage opening to 18 feet.
So,
Thank you.
as the record would show from the planning board, as I said then, I know the cars fit. That wasn't the question. And you can see on LO1, the cars are located in a different space.
I can't see that.
Well,
The outline, they're not cars.
Different scale.
that's not the scale, with all due respect. I mean,
Jonathan, I can clarify this. Jonathan is correct in saying that the outlines of the required parking diameters of what our zoning ordinance requires are closer together on the landscape plan by probably about 1.5 feet on the landscape version. But that doesn't mean that either of them are wrong. It's just showing that you can fit it's not a striping space. It's indicating the box that is 8.5 by 18 in the plan.
let's just clarify this.
But
The
that's
door-
4 spots, Gideon,
It
correct?
is four
spots.
spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Between the prior planning board meeting and this meeting, they decided to make a larger opening in the garage door, which is great because it was necessary to accommodate, as I pointed out in the planning board meeting, the two double width space, which is good. However, I would like them to go now in front of the Historic District Commission to make sure that that's okay with them
I think they're going
They-
tomorrow?
afterwards. Yeah.
Did you say you had a meeting with them, sir? Tomorrow, yes, okay.
It is unusual for a special permit to defer something like that, just making that point out. I just hope that it gets approved. Not against making that change. In regard to the,
Each permit's independent, sir. If they require other permits and don't obtain them, then that's the applicant's responsibility. Each board issues their own decision and their own permits. Our permit is not predicated on someone else's
but
permit.
it's
Within the limits of
required,
their own
actually,
jurisdiction.
this is in the historic district.
Correct.
And it's required, and I can refer to Gideon and Mike here, that it is required that in this particular case, since they are, and I will get to some of the other issues which I brought up with Chris, you probably know about, since they are making some changes to the outside, that
Correct.
those approvals are done prior to issuing any building permit, and they can't get the building permit.
Correct.
Madam Chair, I can just, I can clarify, since I actually staff the Historic District Commission as well. We put a condition in this approval that any changes to the exterior that require the Historic District Commission review or preservation agent's review needs to be approved or reviewed and approved prior to moving forward with the building permit. So that was, so we provided guidance that going through this process first with the zoning board would be the proper direction, because if they don't get the change of use, then the exterior changes would not be relevant. So that was our guidance, so.
Correct. Okay. Continue, sir.
Okay, I'm just making the point for the record that that is unusual, that case for the special permit, that the approval of the exterior changes, which would be subject to the Historic District Commission's approval, which should be made first. And another note, and I have some pictures to show here, after, when was this? In August of 2015, or 2016, sorry, there were some changes that were made to the house that were not consistent with the Historical District Commission's recommendations, but they were made because the prior permit had, the one that was approved, what called for the demolition or the removal of those areas. So Chris Hayward, who okayed those changes, had said that it was okay, and he had made at least he made the point to me when I asked him about it, that that was his reasoning. However, the petitioner now has decided not to remove a section of the building, and it's marked on the plans that the windows are to remain because they are the ones that were there, but they are not the ones that were there. They have been changed. So I asked Chris to contact Gideon about this. I'm not sure that he did.
Chris and I talked today.
And I'm not sure how exactly it can be resolved, because the plans say that the windows to remain, the ones that were there, but they have been changed since an unpermitted-like change, if you will. So-
That's a Historic District Commission issue,
Correct.
and I have all of the approvals, and if there's an error in some of the permitting order, or if there's an issue that needs to be cleaned up through the Historic District Commission, we will ensure that that's rectified.
Correct. Thank you, Gideon. Mr. Block, I would like Mr. Block to finish, Clyde, and then you can come back up.
Okay, well, we'll cover that other stuff then at another date.
Please, Clyde. Continue, sir.
Okay, so besides all of those improvements, which I really think are going in the right direction, I would like to see a condition added on something to state to do with the occupancy, which would leading to, if it was exceeded, would probably potentially lead to increased use and more parking requirements. So those are really big units, in the petitioner's architect's own words. They're excellent, good to have in the neighborhood, but I don't want to see them, what happened in the prior use of the existing residential unit, where you actually have 3 separate people renting 3 separate bedrooms and needing 3 cars when it was a one-family unit. That's what the history of this building has been. I'd like to make sure that those uses are used as 2 bedrooms going forward, and if there's a possibility of placing a condition on there so that they will be used as 2 bedrooms, it would be fantastic.
A condition that says that they're 2-bedroom units?
Yeah, so the language that was in the, just going back to the existing
Well,
unit.
that's what the plans show, and the plans govern, that you just mentioned, the control docs.
It's difficult here because the existing units now says 1 unit, and then it's with, going back to the history of this whole building, uses different languages in different places to describe residential units. And so just calling it a residential unit or a residence doesn't necessarily clarify how many rooms may be used as bedrooms. And
1 second, sir.
part of the challenge is that we're dealing with something that's existing from prior permit, which used really uncertain and unclear language.
And I'd like to just pause for 1 second, sir. Gideon, they can go up to 3 bedrooms with 2 spots and comply, correct?
Yeah, actually, it's more than that.
Or is it 4? And then 5, you need the third?
Yeah.
Correct. So this is, it's fully compliant.
That's not the issue. The issue is adding an additional condition so that they don't increase the usage. Whether or not they have the parking is not the question.
The control plans indicate 2-bedroom units. So, you know, it's fine to suggest a condition that the two
2-bedroom units?
two-bedroom units are there. You know, as long as we're not talking about actual occupancy, then I think we're stepping
Yeah.
over an inappropriate.
Yeah, we would never say you can
Line.
only have X amount of people.
But I think it's
That's-
appropriate if the board so chooses to put a condition in about that each unit is a 2-bedroom unit.
Okay, that's it.
Continue.
I want to hear what Clark has to say. I mean, Clyde has to say.
Clyde, did you want to add something to that, please?
The only thing I wanted to add is that, you know, I'm really interested individual within the community as well. And what happens is that often a person will come and speak, and there's innuendo rather than fact, and that you throw out certain words and you don't know exactly what they're saying. I think that it's incumbent upon anyone that is a witness or whatever, they bring specificity, not innuendo as far as what one might have said to them privately or whatever. I think we have to deal with the facts. And I think that's one of the problems that we're dealing with, is that we throw out these things that one person told me this, one person told me another. All right, let's document it. And if it's true and it's fact, then bring it forward. And then that way it's clear to each and every one of us, not only you as far as making the decision, but also us, the public, as we're watching you on TV, et cetera. That's all I ask.
Thank you. Did you want to add something, sir? Thanks.
I just want to be clear. The unit that we're proposing, the new unit, is a 2-bedroom unit. The other spaces shown in it, we've taken great pains to not make them bedrooms. The client doesn't want them. He doesn't want larger than 2-bedroom. So it was specifically designed as a 2-bedroom unit. That's what the plan shows. The owner doesn't want to do anything other than that, just to be clear.
Okay, thank you, sir. Did anyone else have any questions or comments from the audience? Do you have something new, sir?
If anybody would like a copy of the prior appeal or my depositions that are interrogatories, which are all fact-based and not in dispute in the court, I'm happy to send them to you.
I think, does anybody from the board want that? I think we're all set. Did you want to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to add about the shadow parking. I would really like to see that go away. And in addition to the fact that if it is indeed only a 2-bedroom, if there's no shadow parking there, that makes it a lot harder for it to be used in any other way. In other words, there won't be any other parking. There's 2 and 2 and 2. And that would be awesome. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I just provide a slight report on that, just from the planning board, to speak to that shadow parking space and during
Sure.
that process? It's in the staff report, or the planning board report, but during the planning board hearing, it was recommended by the planning board to remove the shadow parking, and one of the board members specifically asked Jonathan Block, the abutter, about the potential for it putting them in a hard situation as far as on-street parking versus on-site parking. And they said that with the existing conditions, and I'm totally paraphrasing, but with the existing conditions, there's a preference to use the on-street parking, and so it would be better to not have the shadow space there on-site. So with that recommendation, the planning board did suggest that that be removed. They didn't remove it from the plan because it's just a recommendation to you. So I just wanted to make sure there was that clarification about that
Thank you, Gideon.
removal of the shadow parking space.
Thank you very much. Is there any other public comment? Sir?
Hi, Madam Chair. I didn't really want to have to speak tonight because I've said more than I could ever say so many times. So I figured I would just sing a song. No. No, I just want to say that I respect you guys and everything that you guys have to put up with. and deal with. I know this hasn't been easy for anybody here. This has been an absolute nightmare. I could have never dreamed such things were actually possible in real life. This has been quite an experience for me. And I'm going to take all the good that I can out of it and grow as a person and just carry on and be good to people and try to help people and to be a good person, even more so. And a good neighbor, for that matter. And that's all I really want to do, is just be a good neighbor at this point. I just want to have peace. My wife and I just want to have peace. You guys know how hard I've tried to do everything. The only reason I bought this place was because I wanted to have a Pilates studio. That was our dream. That's been dashed on and stepped on. I mean, that's still in the run of the mill. It's in the, in the machine there at the land court, so that's still viable. But, the only reason we're doing an apartment is because this is what the neighbors wanted. And then in doing so, we wanted to just do 2 smaller apartments. Now we're doing 1 huge apartment. And honestly, the only reason I didn't do 3 apartments is because they were going to yell and scream about it. I sat with the town, 3 bedrooms. And, because the first thing my architect says is, like, you can't do 2 bedrooms here. This is a huge space. I'm like, yeah, but my neighbor doesn't want it to be more than 2 bedrooms. So, the town and I decided that for the least path, the least resistance, let's just make it 2 bedrooms and let's just get this over with. Let's just continue to cut ourselves down and hurt ourselves financially and make this just more difficult for us, just to make this one person happy. It's just, and then, and then I have my tenant here, Teo, who's like one of the nicest people I've ever met, who came here tonight. This is the tenant. He actually lives. He's like the good part of what I brought, to this 195 on Auburn Street. And, they're really upset about the balusters. I mean, that's gonna like totally, on one hand, the neighbors are concerned about cars parking on Franklin Street, and then they're like, well, let's block the driveway to make sure that they park on Franklin Street. So it's like one end they say one thing to suit their narrative, one end they say other. So, I haven't said much. I haven't been trying to just really work with the town. I work with Gideon. I work with Ann. I work with everyone. Everyone's been great. But honestly, it's just enough has been enough. We just can't take this anymore. Like, I just want to be done. I don't know. I wish I never bought it. I wish I never got into this. I had no idea. Clyde broke down in tears here when I first was here, and they were laughing at him. And it's just been a horrible, horrible experience. And I would, well, they were manly tears. They were manly tears. But I would just, yeah, he still isn't over it, and I don't know how many years it's going to take for me to get over it, and my wife, to be honest with you, really. I've tried everything. I've talked to this person. I've extended olive branch after olive branch. I've just tried everything possible. And, I don't know what else to do. So I please would ask the board in doing this, because he's going to appeal it anyway. We're already planning on him appealing it. So just don't put 1,000 conditions on me on this just because of this one person. It's a very simple thing. It's an apartment. It's a 2-bedroom. It has the parking. As far as the shadow space, there's an ulterior reason, motive why they don't want the shadow space. I have no idea. There must be something for something down the line when they appeal it, or something that they're going to say, oh, well, they really don't have enough parking here, so it should be turned back. So I really want to keep the shadow space, and I want to have it there. Now, if I need it, I have it, but I don't plan on using it, and I don't want to use it. It's the last thing I want to do. So, and then as far as the curb, that has to do with the town of Watertown. That was there before I bought it. Like, I'm not here to, I barely have money to do what I need to do here. I don't know how I'm going to make the project now, because the money I spent fighting this for 3 years, I could have built a castle there, okay? And the place is falling apart, and I have to take care of it. And this is what's happening. I don't know how that helps the neighborhood. I don't know how that helps Watertown. I don't know how any of this makes any sense to anyone. There was a brothel there before. I kicked them out. This is public news. This is nothing new. I kicked them out to my own detriment and haven't been taking any income in because, I'm trying to help the neighborhood. I've done nothing but do the right thing from day one. And I ask you, board, please do the right thing. Give my wife and I a break. We're good people. We're just honest people. We're not trying to be, big shots, we're not wise guys, we're not like walking in like we own the town. I mean, we just bought a place, it's our first property we ever bought, I leveraged everything to do it, and this person is trying to bury me. I don't know. And I just asked the town just to help me find a little way out, you know. I hear them whispering here. It's like I've been sitting here listening to them talk time after time after time. I don't say anything. I'm up here, I said 5 words, no respect. You know, as far as like being concerned, if we really want to talk about it, as far as being concerned about cars coming out, Block's hedge goes all the way. He's got this huge bamboo, goes all the way along his property, which all of it goes into my driveway. It's like insult to injury. I never say anything. It all overhangs. And that's the tail. All the stuff goes all into my stuff. Those little bamboo leaves. I have pictures everywhere. I don't say anything. I'm just like literally, it's just like literally piling it on me. It's just like, and then his hedges go all the way up to the edge. Well, if he's so concerned, why doesn't he take his hedge back? Why doesn't he take his bamboo back? That'll make the place a lot safer, but no, it's too much for him to do anything to really help because he cares so much about the toddlers and the kittens and, you know, all these people that are just in danger, you know, and he's like the security guard. Meanwhile, he's blaming me for parking because the AOH has a party and they fill up the street because that's what they do. You know, they serve they think they did their thing for their country and they deserve to have a drink. Well, then he comes out and he's just looking at cars, taking down license plate, calling the police, wasting taxpayers' money. I mean, this is like not good for Watertown. I'm trying to do some good for, I'm sorry I went on so much.
No, that's okay,
I just
sir.
felt so good to say something.
I
And
appreciate your
just-
honesty.
I do, and I'm glad I said something. I hope I was respectful. I know my attorney's like shaking his head. My wife's, yeah, I know, but I mean,
You're paying him to shake his head.
Yeah, that's it, you know, I want to say something, you know, it's not right, it's not nice, and I don't like it, but you know what, I have to deal with it. I'm a big boy, I bought the place, I'm going to keep it forever, I'm never going to let the place go. The place is going to be 5 years, 10 years from now, it's going to be an absolute beautiful gem of a home, and that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, and God bless everyone in this room.
Thank you, sir. Is there any other public comment? Did you want to speak, sir? Thank you.
So I'm Teo Kittel, and I'm the sole current resident of 195 Mount Auburn Street. I'm here to support Clark and Zana. You know, listening to the arguments and seeing what's been going on, and the house is in need of repair. The outside needs to be worked on. So if you're able to grant this and have this move forward, I think that would absolutely help, and I back up, you know, their desire to improve the house. As a resident there, would love to see the improvement of the house. It's something that we've known about since we've moved in over 2 years now. There's been no progress made on this because of the arguing back and forth on this. We'd like to see the house cleaned up, fixed, worked on, and moved forward. I do have as a resident there, I've come in and out of that driveway every single day. My wife goes in and out of that driveway. The parking plans here we have no issue with. I do have a small concern with the blocking of the end of the driveway, as it seems counterintuitive to the arguments that have been had, where there's not enough parking, there's too much on the street. This actually promotes more use on the street. It's an obstruction in and out of the building. There is a safety issue. As I back out, I'm the person that backs out in the morning in this. My car is there. I have a visibility issue. That is the issue that we have. If there's any safety issues there, it is a visibility issue. And it is the shrubbery that blocks the view. There aren't that many homes on the street that have this, especially right up to the driveway. This is the only home that has this. If we are that concerned with the safety of us, the people that live there, coming in and out of this residence, then the shrub should go away. This will keep the flow in and out of the driveway open, have less cars potentially on the street, and to be able to have the visibility and add that safety. That's my only consideration with this. Other than that, if it stays, we will, as residents, we will figure it out. But I 100% support the plans here. Clark and Zane have been fantastic. Landlords, I think their intent is honest, and they have been great and very supportive of us living there, and it has been a fantastic place to live so far. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Anybody else want to add anything? Okay. I just want to ask a couple questions before I turn it over to the board, to Gideon, just to recap again. So the parking for the residential is completely compliant. And I guess, how did we arrive at 2 bedrooms when they could have 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms and still be compliant?
During the previous hearing where they withdrew before they came to the zoning board because of the relief requested was incorrect.
Yep.
They, the public testimony at the planning board suggested 2 bedrooms. And so when they were submitting plans, there was an initial sketch, I think, for 3 bedrooms. I think there, and they made some modifications to that. We discussed at the staff level with them, we discussed the pros and cons of the 2 versus 3. There is no difference from a zoning perspective, and they decided to go with the 2-bedroom based on what the butter and other requests from the audience. I think there might have been more than, it was just the butter that had suggested a 2-bedroom, not a 3-bedroom. And so we just made that recommendation to them as a suggestion that it's what they suggested, and so you can make the choice. But
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand, because
there's
number
not
of
a- it's-
bedrooms doesn't
yeah.
always correlate with cars. You could have a family that have 2 separate-sex children, or same-sex children that, have their own bedrooms and whatnot, so.
we said that during the planning board meeting
Yeah,
as
I'm
well.
just trying to understand if he can have 3 bedrooms and it meets the,
Yes.
zoning bylaw.
It does. To be clear, though, this project is about the conversion of some of the commercial space that was previously approved, so it's removing a commercial space. The commercial parking space, the shadow space was, the site as a whole requires 7 spaces if you were going to put this in an area where you were permitting mixed use. Well, a 2-unit, so it changes that 3. So a 2-unit with the commercial space would require 7, but you're also allowed to have 20% of it, 25% of it reduced by shadow parking. So that's why they have 7 parking spaces on site, with one of them being shadow, which is the landscaping that nobody wants to see removed, both the property owner and also the neighborhood. So I just wanted to make sure that that was very clear. The planning board recommended removing that shadow space. They pointedly asked about that, implications of that, because by removing that, there's only 6 parking spaces. I also wanted to be clear that from staff perspective, that is a side yard and not a front yard. No house has 2 front yards in this scenario, and so the front yard is the Mount Auburn Street side, and that's been determined. And so from that perspective, it's not a front yard parking space, whether it's shadow or not. And then the other component that was brought up was that the sidewalk is town-owned, and it is a concrete sidewalk all the way out, most likely because of the long history of it being a funeral home, and also because of the interaction with the bus stop. And there's a lot of people that convene in that area. And so any changes to both the sidewalk, the curb, and no parking signs would have to go through both DPW or the Traffic Commission. So we identified that during the planning board hearing process 2 weeks ago. So those are the points that came out of this, and I just want to make sure that.
So just one quick follow-up question, Gideon, please. So in order to be fully compliant, they've laid out the 7 spaces on this plan, put one of them in shadow in accordance with the bylaw. So why would we reduce it to 6 if they can comply?
You're asking staff's opinion. You could also allow up to 4 cars stacked. There's different scenarios to allow that, so you could remove this shadow space and have an asphalt area that is permitted during the day. I think it would be a more awkward layout than the shadow space. So you could put another space right here, and it would, limit the number 3 and number 4 from getting out during the day, but commercial spaces often only use their spaces during the day. So from the staff's perspective, I think there's ways to fit that 7th car, but I think you would have to acknowledge that that would be allowed because there's a site plan that shows only 6 spaces there. So I think there's scenarios where you could allow that in a different way if the tenants are not using it on a regular basis during the day.
But I think correct me if I'm wrong, is the intent to comply and meet the ordinance and then not use the shadow space unless it's needed?
That's correct, and the way,
That
the
makes sense to me.
right. And the condition specifically was written, with strike-through right now, that they could only get the space if they could prove that they needed it, or if there was a reason from our side at the staff level that
Yeah,
they
that-
needed
that's
to comply,
typical.
because there was
That's fair,
code
yeah.
complaints or other reasons.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. I just wanted to fully understand that, because it looks like the applicant is trying to provide something that's compliant, and I just, in the
Okay.
absence of, a reason to not comply, I don't see why we wouldn't work towards as much compliance as possible.
Originally, this shadow space was proposed for a different proposal, and originally it was proposed as a real parking space. Staff did a review and suggested that they could convert that into a shadow space, which they were happy, because they really didn't want to disrupt that landscaping, and they also didn't think that it was necessary from the actual use of the site today with the office. So I leave it to the board as far as, that condition and whether that shadow space be. It was something that came out of the process based on the public testimony at the planning board
Okay.
to request removing that shadow space.
Okay. Did you have a follow-up
Just a question on that,
Pam?
if I
Yes,
if I may.
And then we'll open it up after.
Sure, thank you.
David.
Just for my clarity, then, the shadow space, even though it's drawn as if it's something that would be built on drawing L-01, in fact, the title means, I'm assuming, or I just want to understand, that it would not be built day one, but that should it be needed, it could be built.
That's correct. It's showing it's showing the material that it would be built in if they were to build it, but it would remain as a landscaped area.
So then maybe the drawing should just be adjusted to say future shadow space. So that, when I looked at it, until we've had this conversation, I assumed it was a space that would be built, but, with a different grass block paver, et cetera.
That's fine if you'd like to clarify that. It is, in our definition, it defines what a shadow space is,
Thank
which
you.
is a space for the
Sure, for the
future, but it
Okay, great, thanks.
would.
So did you want to add one more thing, sir? And then we're going to open it up to the board so we can keep this moving.
Regarding the shadow space, the intent of the shadow space, it's a paper parking spot.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything to the landscape.
I understand, thank you.
Nothing to the land. In fact, we're landscape architects. We
I
want to see that
understand.
green. If there's a requirement and it's approved, then we propose the grass block, because that's the next best alternative.
I understand,
But
thank you.
there's no intent to pave that over.
Thank you. Okay, let's start with Member Gannon. Any questions or comments tonight?
Yeah,
John?
and actually relating to the shadow space, are you talking about pervious pavers or just leaving it as grass or?
There's a detail on.
Sir, can you want to just stay up there, because there might be some other questions, or if somebody feels as though they can answer the question, they can come on up. We just want to make sure you're at the microphone.
On that drawing L-02, there's a detail. It's not porous, it is porous, but it's not typical porous pavers. These are designed for vehicular use, it's not pedestrian really, and they have large openings in the concrete, in the precast concrete pavers that allow grass to grow through those openings. So you actually see a level of green as opposed to porous pavers, which look like pavers. This actually has grass growing through it.
Okay. Thank you. And I've had a lot of questions answered already by staff, so I appreciate that guidance. One procedural question I had concerned the status of the existing permit. So know from my limited practice of zoning law that you shouldn't have two permits dangling on the same property. What are we going to do with the existing permit if we grant this permit?
I'm happy that you noted that because we provided the permit history, but there is not a condition that would strike the previous approvals, or the previous, so this is also complicated because there's a previous approval that will be in effect still. So I think that's, might have been why we didn't get the
You can
condition.
carry that by a condition?
So it would be the previous approval for the Pilates studio would be replaced with this.
With this one, okay.
Right.
And that's all the questions I have, thank you.
Member Heap?
Just a quick question for Gideon. Gideon, I've never seen bollards like this on any residential driveway, ever. Have we ever required such a thing before, ever?
No, the condition that we suggested was that it was just a physical barrier. So we weren't specifying if it was a landscaping, just striping. It could have been a 6-inch bumper. So we didn't specify anything. They submitted that as what they were thinking. They interpreted that that would be one option. So,
But from staff's perspective, what is the basis for requiring this? I mean, they've got a curve cut that runs the whole
Right.
length of their driveway, correct?
yep. This area is a parking area, and so from staff's perspective, we talked with the butter and talked about the interaction of the street, and so it's defining the drive aisle as narrower, but I ultimately believe that I see a positive in both directions. One direction, the cars can directly come in and out of the parking spaces for the commercial area, which is a more viable option for them, but it does create a bigger opening. It is compliant and it's pre-existing opening for a driveway. With the narrower opening, you have to drive through that narrower opening, so it creates a more defined area for it's the pedestrian zone where the car-pedestrian interaction is. And so that ultimately, and it would make it so that if there was an issue with landscaping on the adjacent property, et cetera, so we suggested that that could be an option that would be reasonable. And then we didn't suggest the bollards. I mean, I think even just a curb, a bumper curb or fence or anything, well, fence would have to go to, some things have to go to Historic District Commission, but anything that we condition for this, we have to be careful too that it doesn't require a whole nother hearing for historic. But so I think there's pros and cons to the full access versus a more defined access. And we conditioned it to ensure that the drive aisle was adequate for the drive aisle and that it wasn't ending up being too big that it would create too much of a restriction. But it is a more awkward movement for those parking spaces.
Thank you. That's all I got.
David?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. So, in that same area where the bollards are suggested or proposed, so the buffer strip, what is the buffer strip? Is it landscaping or?
It's not required to be landscaping, and quite frankly, to put a little tiny piece of landscape like that.
I'm asking what it is. You've got a hatch?
It's striped.
Okay, so
And then the
it's,
two bollards
it's
are
pavement.
permanently,
Okay, so it's
installed.
pavement. All right,
That's
thank
correct.
you. There's another,
Just another, on that, the other choices were to do a planter of some sort with plants as the barrier. We were requested to put a physical barrier.
yeah, yep.
So, and we didn't feel that, in looking at the planters available that would work there and that, were reasonable to suggest, we didn't think historical would go for it. We tried to find a bollard that, they would not object to. We did not want to do this. but-
Okay, thank you. And then another question for you is, if you wouldn't mind staying there, is, could you explain the hatch pattern that's adjacent to the entrance of the new residential unit?
It's really just showing an additional area of pavement to allow access to that gate.
Oh, okay, all right, great,
Because
thank
it's
you.
not on the same line as the walkway.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thanks. And then I appreciate you're and the teams addressing the window situations for the dwelling units, so that's great to have that addressed. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I do have a couple of questions more, I think, related to staff, I think, just so I understand it. So do we, with the bollards, do we feel that that's going to be an issue in terms of prohibiting snow removal? I'm just wondering, I'm wondering where else are we requiring access to someone's site to be narrowed down to less than what zoning typically requires?
It wouldn't be an issue for snow removal. They would just have to work around that. As far as the necking down of an entryway, we oftentimes with new projects, if you have a 5-foot buffer, you don't have a 20-foot wide driveway all the way up to the sidewalk. You have it
Neck down?
neck down a little.
Just a single
It
vehicle
would probably
entrance?
it would probably be around 12 to, it could be 14 feet wide, but it wouldn't be the full width of the two.
And this is more like around 9 to 10 feet wide, right?
Yeah, this is about 10 feet wide.
Yeah, yeah. And then, adjacent to it, I haven't been to the site recently, but I've been a number of times as this development has come to our attention. So the fencing and the hedging on the abutting property, are there regulations, town regulations, which limit the height of that fencing or planting in relationship to the proximity to the street?
Yes, so when adjacent to a driveway, a fence or a hedge is limited to 36 inches. Oftentimes, in practicality, we use a sensibility rule that as long as you're meeting the intent and safety, the intent and safety is that a pedestrian walking down the street can see a car backing out, and a car backing out can see a pedestrian. In my opinion, having the driveway entrance further away kind of relieves that. So I think the intent of that height is being meant, because before someone coming, I guess, heading towards Franklin Street, even if there is a hedge or a fence that's taller than 36 inches there, you still got, 8 feet before you hit the driveway. So they're going to see a car backing out. The car is going to see them.
Yeah,
So
I'm actually,
that-
I'm questioning,
That safety concern isn't there.
well, I'm actually just questioning whether that safety concern should be there on the abutting property.
Yeah, and I'm saying because there's that 8 feet where the driveway entrance isn't adjacent to that property line, it's 8 feet away,
So if
then
there-
that concern, that requirement, I would say, is not required in that area.
So if there were no drive aisle there, then the height of the existing fencing and/or planting would be compliant?
Correct, and the fact
Okay.
that it's 8 feet away, I think it's okay also. If those bollards weren't there and the striping wasn't there and those cars shown parked could pull in and out and the driveway was that wide, then I would say, yes, there is an issue.
Okay.
But the fact that it's 8 feet away, I think that issue is resolved.
Great, thank you.
But there's an issue today. There's a violation currently.
I can't verify there's a violation there because I haven't driven out. I don't know the height of the vegetation.
Does anybody
but-
here know how high? How high is the bamboo, sir?
The bamboo's not relevant. It's the rhododendrons, I believe.
Whatever it is.
It's more than, I'd say it's like more than 4 feet. It's like 5 feet in spot, so therefore it's, the rule is 15 feet in from the curb, so
Right.
there's no bamboo within 15 feet. It's only rhododendrons from the property line. I've measured that many times. The issue, there's another
It's
issue.
not the species, sir, it's any kind of.
No, but I'm just he didn't say the 15 feet, so I want to clarify what we're talking, so we all come to agreement, so we're fact-based. 15 feet in, it's between 4 and 5 feet, depending on exactly where you measure it, it's vegetation. I confirmed that probably about 2 days ago. One thing to note is that the driveway is not allowed to be used now, it's out of compliance, so there is really no
We're
safety.
talking about your property, sir. We're not talking about the other one right now. We asked you about
Right.
the shrubbery.
I'm trying to be clear about answering what's on there. I'm answering on the edge of my property, but not on the driveway, because legally there is no driveway next door to it.
Wait a minute.
Okay, and then, thank you. My next question, just again, for staff, just, we've talked about this a couple times, I just want to make sure that I've got it straight. It relates to the quantity of the bedrooms. So for 2 parking spaces for a dwelling unit, that would allow for up to how many bedrooms within a dwelling unit?
In the zoning ordinance for a two-family, it'd be 4 bedrooms per
4
unit.
bedrooms.
Per unit.
Per unit, yeah. So this is, I'll state an opinion versus, rather than ask a question, is I personally feel uncomfortable limiting the number of bedrooms beyond what zoning calls for. It seems, it's a very pretty street, but, you know, as I drive down that street or walk down the street and look at any house, I'm assuming there are more than 2 bedrooms in any of those homes. And I don't understand why we would put an excessive restriction on this residential development, since it's beyond what zoning requires. So that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you, David. Did you have any questions or comments? Member Donato?
I do have a few quick questions. First one, just getting in follow-up where we were talking about the sidewalk, just to kind of spell it out, you had talked about how that's town-owned, so that would be a cost at the town, for the town.
Right, and it's also not in their purview to decide if that sidewalk should be narrower. That is not just a fill-in planter strip. I did take a look at it after the last planning board hearing, and it is a solid concrete sidewalk that goes to the curb line. So that's so it would have to go through a process with the town to make a determination if the narrower sidewalk and the planter strip is appropriate. And so we shouldn't be conditioning the town to do something in the right-of-way. It can be suggested that, and I've already noted it because that intersection would be rebuilt as part of the Mount Auburn Street corridor project. And so that entire area, it goes into the side roads a certain distance for each road. And so this area would be addressed as part of that, at least a portion of it. So I would assume the rest of it would be as well.
Okay, thank you. And then a quick question for Mr. Rojas. On A05, there's a notation about an existing door to be relocated to a new exterior location. I just wasn't following which of those. Thank you.
That's the inset door.
Yes, that area is being reconfigured and pushed in so that it doesn't interfere with the driveway. And there's an existing door there that we're just reusing, really, that same door in the new door location. So it's really just the reuse of an existing door.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is, I thought I remembered from a previous hearing that we had that the real estate lease called for 4 parking spaces, but I just wanted to double check that.
It's actually 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one follow-up.
Oh, sure,
Yeah,
sure.
With regards to issue brought up by Member Gannon, from a procedural standpoint, relative to the existing permit that's in place now, and I don't mean to be presumptuous at all, but should the board act favorably tonight on the petition, what we would not want to have happen is that existing permit to go away until such time as the appeal rights relative to this particular application were expired. So we don't want to be in a position where the existing permit would go away should the board act favorably tonight, go away tomorrow, and then still have appeal rights with regards to this particular petition.
I guess, I don't
I might
think
even say it should be
that matters, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're giving up too much there. I
Yeah.
think you should hang on to your other permit until, I would think you pull a building permit under this special permit.
It's fine.
That would be the milestone, I think, where you would have to make the final decision whether you give
Yeah,
up the Pilates studio.
once you exercise one or the other,
Yep.
then the other would become null and void.
Yep.
And I think that if you, even if we act favorably this evening, and you prevail in the land court, that, in my opinion, that permit's, it's good to go. as long as you haven't exercised this one. So
Okay.
I don't,
Thank
and
you.
and I'm not an attorney, but I know
That's-
that.
No,
yeah.
that sounds appropriate.
Okay, okay. So I wanted to just add one more thing before we kind of switch gears here, and we did receive one additional correspondence in support from Mr. Arasian, John Arasian from 43 Bailey Road. And I won't read it in detail, but this is, he's in favor of this proposal and thinks it's a good project here.
He owns a house across the street on the
On the opposite corner?
opposite corner.
Correct. So what I would like to do now is kind of just go over some of the comments that had come up this evening, and I was making some notes. And again, we've had, previous cases on this matter, separate things that we were looking at, but the themes are similar: access, parking, et cetera, et cetera. So looking at the site plan and looking what you're proposing, I'm having a difficult time with the bollards and really truly understanding what they're going to accomplish. I personally think they will impede snow removal. I think somebody coming around Franklin Street now, trying to swing in to this particular driveway, and we haven't seen any kind of radius plans to demonstrate that the bollards don't impede access. So I personally wouldn't be in favor of something without seeing turning plans and things like that that restrict the curb opening for this particular driveway. The bollards will also, in my opinion, make it more difficult for circulation on and off the site. So why would a board move towards something that's going to restrict circulation? We want proper circulation, we want adequate circulation, we want cars to flow on and off the property as safely. You might get a tenant that's not a great driver and needs a little more room to swing their vehicle in and out of that. And then I'm looking at backing up out of that area. It just seems restrictive with really no true benefit. And I don't know if other board members feel that way, but that's just my opinion. Again, I just noted snow removal, they prohibit access, they impede circulation, and again, there's just really no benefit, in my opinion, at this particular location. I feel the same as Member Ferris on the bedrooms. If the property would like to pursue bedrooms, in number of bedrooms and units that comply with zoning, I don't see why and/or how we could further restrict that. And the third point is on the shadow parking. It looks like the plan is, again, the plan that they're proposing originally, and I'll refer to the survey plan, the BEBO plan dated April 5th, that they're trying to demonstrate to the board that this is something that can work and is hopefully sustainable at this property. And why would we prohibit the applicant from complying with the zoning bylaw for the number of spots? We're always doing the opposite. We want more parking and more access and good access and circulation and turning radiuses. So those are kind of just my basic comments. I didn't have anything else. I don't know if the board wants to talk about any of these items, how they feel. Member Heap?
I agree with everything you just said on all three subjects, which is, I think, not limiting the number of bedrooms beyond what would otherwise be allowable under zoning. I'm not in favor of the bollards for all the reasons you stated, but in addition, it's just something it seems to be a departure from prior board practice with respect to residential driveways. We've permitted any number of, residential properties in town, and this is not something I've seen imposed on a property owner previously. And I agree also on the shadow study, on the shadow parking space. It's not going to get built right away, and hopefully will never get built, but it is a good faith effort to comply with our zoning ordinance, and I'm not going to, for that reason, I think it ought to remain on the plan.
Do you have
I
any
just-
opinions about it?
Well, just one other, I'm in agreement as well with what you both have just said, and just one other kind of factor about the quantity of bedrooms. You know, that's what I do for a living, is work on residential units, and I think the applicant may have said that this is roughly a 2,000 square foot, two-bedroom unit, which doesn't really exist except in very, well, it.
You don't design those every day?
No, it exists.
Come on.
It exists in homes which are very, very spacious, but I think it just puts undue restrictions on the viability of this residential unit beyond what zoning requires, and I am not in favor of restricting it beyond what zoning requires.
Did you have any comments, Tom?
I just want to say I'm in agreement with all of those points as well.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would concur. I could-
Oh, thank you very much, Member Gannon. Attorney Brodigan, did you want to add anything before I close and we go into our business mode? Okay, okay. Okay, so with that, what I'd like to do now is close up the public portion of the meeting, going over a couple sort of housekeeping items here. I did mention for the record the one comment we received from Mr. Arasian, who isn't here with us this evening, into the record as well. We have our planning staff report from April 5th. The planning board met on April 10th. And again, noting that there was some discussion about the bollards and the shadow space. And interestingly enough, Member Cohen, our former member here, had pointed out the viability of the shadow space. So again, I'll move on to our conditions here, and we have some draft conditions. And the shadow space number 5 is deleted here, as recommended by the planning board, and based on the discussion this evening and the discussion amongst my fellow board members, it seems like we would want to reinstitute the shadow space with the condition as noted. So it can only be constructed if required by the town, and that would probably be through documentation that there was a situation, a tenant there, there was that third car or something like that, and they were parking in the street. And then and the second one says, after completion by the petitioner of a parking study, and its submission to an analysis by the town. A parking study is pretty, I mean, as I see Gideon, chuckle down there. A parking study's pushing it. Again, the 7 spots is compliant with the zoning bylaw, and if the applicant felt as though the addition of that 7th spot, as shown on the plans, would improve the parking situation at the property, improve circulation, remove a car that may be using, whatever the situation arises, I think that should be something, dialogue with the planning staff, and I would like a caveat in the event that the staff felt as though they need to bring it back to the zoning board, that we could look at it from that matter. But I think a parking study is a little bit much. I think it should be reworded to include sufficient documentation from the property owner, and I'll leave the rest up to the staff. But I think that when and if that arises, again, it's not going to be a parking study, because it's just that's not the mechanism, I think, that is necessary for this. That's something for much larger projects to try to document that you want to build less parking typically, and in this particular case, it would be exercising what's allowed by zoning. And is the staff comfortable with drafting that? Okay. Condition number 6, based on the discussion this evening, is going to be removed. There will be no buffer located there. There will be no bollards located there. They will not be located there in order to allow for adequate circulation and access and egress in and off the property that has existed since probably the 1950s. And we talked about the bedrooms. And again, I would ask staff to, again, I think it's implied that you have to comply, but if the board would like any type of condition that the each of the units and the parking associated with those units shall be compliant. I mean, that's a given, but if we have to go to that extra length in the form of a condition, the staff can draft something of that nature.
I think it would be important, since there was control plans submitted that show 2 bedrooms, that if you want that to have the flexibility to be compliant with zoning, that there be a condition, or that the plans, or a condition that the plans can be updated to.
I mean, I think, and we've dealt with this on other situations, and Mike has weighed in on things on different properties, when we talk about things that if they came to the town and said, we want to make this a 3-bedroom, or we want to add a bedroom, or whatever the situation might be, that Mike would then do the review and determine it's in compliance and issue the permit. There would be no other
No.
need for, there's no variances required, there's nothing required.
And this would be interior. I'm just saying, because the special permit process and the control plans.
Yeah, we don't go inside, really.
So you should just identify that the spaces can be redesigned or reconfigured to allow up to, or however your
Yeah, I
direction
would,
is.
I guess I would look to staff to draft a condition. Again, it's just reiterating law or in zoning,
Right.
that, there's 2 residential units there, and that the number of bedrooms, it shall, meet the parking requirements. Is that acceptable to the board?
That is.
Yes, very good.
Is there anything else that I'm missing from the discussion this evening?
Not that I can think of.
As bedrooms may increase within the unit, then the applicant needs to continue to confirm that sufficient light and ventilation is being provided, but that will come along with the
With the
building
building
official.
code.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
thank you.
Okay, with that, are there any motions or any other further testimony?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that the Zoning Board of Appeals vote to approve the special permit requested by the applicant with the conditions as discussed, just discussed.
Okay. There's been a motion made for approval with the conditions discussed and amended this evening. Is there a second?
Second?
There's been a motion made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Thank you. Any other business for the board this evening? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, sir.